Hi, good morning. So it's been a while since I've spoken directly to you, and today I'm taking the opportunity to share with you an understanding of deep reality as cosmic consciousness. So some of the material that I'm going to share with you today is in my book, You Are the Universe, Discovering Your Cosmic Self and Why It Matters. Once again, some of this material is in my book, You Are the Universe, Discovering Your Cosmic Self and Why It Matters. So now for several years, I've been using this term, cosmic consciousness. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that this term cosmic consciousness that I have used and the way I have used it has been the subject of a lot of ridicule. And also there's a website, if you want to check it out, called Wisdom of Chopra, that is a random Deepak Chopra quote generator. And it's sponsored by militant atheists and others who feel that what I say is mumbo jumbo and the equivalent of random meaningless phrases that could easily be generated by a random quote generator. So having said that, let me explain to you today in great detail what cosmic consciousness is. So I'll start with the definition and then we'll go and go deeper into the understanding. The definition of cosmic consciousness is as follows. This is my definition, but there are other definitions of consciousness that I should also mention. So Rupert Spira, who is a great teacher of non-duality, says consciousness is that in which all experience occurs. It is also that in which all experience is known, and it is also that out of which all experience is made. And then there is also the definition that many other non-dualists subscribe to, but I heard from the neuropsychiatrist Dan Siegel, who says consciousness is the knowing element in every experience. Consciousness is the knowing element in every experience. Okay, those are great definitions, and today I'd like to share with you my definition. Consciousness, cosmic consciousness, is the immeasurable potential for all knowing and all experience in every species of consciousness or in every sentient being. Okay, so I'll repeat. Cosmic consciousness is the immeasurable potential for all knowing and all experience in every sentient being or every species of consciousness. Once more, if you don't mind. Cosmic consciousness is the immeasurable potential for all modes of knowing and experience in every sentient being. One last time, because I'm refining the definition. Cosmic consciousness is the immeasurable potential for all modes of knowing and experience in every sentient being or every species of consciousness. Okay, now let's go a little deeper. The current explanation of the universe, which is a physicalist interpretation of the universe by materialists and most scientists, is that the universe that you and I are experiencing is real. And how we experience it, of course, is called the hard problem of consciousness. But everything you experience is real, including your body and the physical universe. For the moment, we're not talking about the mind. Everything you experience is real. If you go into ancient wisdom traditions, they will say that the universe is made of the elements like earth, water, fire, air, and space. Once again, if you go to the ancient wisdom traditions, they will say that everything, including our body, is made of earth, water, fire, space, and air. Now, of course, today we have refined that. So we can say that everything that is there in the universe is made of elements from the periodic table, and then also from what we call space-time, gravity, force fields, and elementary particles. So it's a deeper construct or the understanding of air, fire, water, earth, space. Today, gravity is explained as the curvature of space-time. So the more the curvature of space-time, the bigger the force of gravity. You can think of gravity as the slowing of time or the curvature of space. But ultimately, they are the same thing. And then there's the periodic table of elements, over 100 elements, starting with hydrogen and helium to everything like iron and carbon and oxygen and nitrogen, and ultimately the radioactive elements. So this is, of course, the explanation that science gives us. And it's a very good explanation because this explanation is a perfect way to create scientific technologies, whether it is artificial intelligence or it is augmented reality or virtual reality. All of these scientific explanations are extremely good at helping us create technology, from jet planes to the internet to intergalactic space probes to the ability to land men on the moon or a robot on Mars. So what's wrong with this explanation? Nothing is wrong with this explanation. It's a very good scientific model for what we call everyday human reality. There's no other species that has these concepts, right? An alligator or an elephant or a dolphin doesn't have these models of reality. Only humans do. So what are force fields and gluons and quarks and particles and space-time and gravity and mass and spin and charge and everything that fundamental physics and scientists are telling us? What are these entities? And what are photons? Yes, Ramanand Dixit says photons too. So everything that we've mentioned just now, gluons, particles, force fields, quarks, space-time, gravity, are human constructs for modes of knowing and experience in human consciousness, which is one aspect of cosmic consciousness. Human consciousness, which is one aspect of cosmic consciousness. So human consciousness can not only experience and know experience, human consciousness can create concepts, ideas, constructs around those modes of knowing and experience. A photon is a mental construct as much as an electromagnetic field, but we objectify it as fundamental reality. But before we objectify it as a fundamental reality, whatever that is, virtual particles, space, time, energy, information, matter, quarks, gluons, whatever, before we objectify that as fundamental reality, it is a mode of knowing and experience in human consciousness, an agreement in human consciousness, employing a method called science. Science is a mode of human thought. After all, science requires theories which occur in human consciousness. Science requires experiments which are designed in human consciousness. And science requires observations which are made in human consciousness. And out of that methodology, we are creating human constructs to explain our own modes of knowing and experience in human consciousness, no matter what methodology we employ. Okay, so today, some of the greatest technologies are instruments that can detect gravity waves, which have to be interpreted by human consciousness. Today, with the Hadron Collider at CERN in Switzerland, we have created particle colliders, but this collision of particles has to be interpreted in human consciousness. The particles themselves are modes of knowing and experience. My friend Hans-Peter Duhr, who was at one time the director of the Max Planck Institute and a student of Heisenberg, would frequently say matter is not made of matter. He would say what we call matter is a space-time event in consciousness, and then the interpretation of those space-time events is what we call particles and force fields and everything else, human constructs. So this is what humans are capable of, not only of knowing and experience, but creating very useful constructs that allow us to manipulate experience and create technologies, which is fantastic, right? But I'm going to another deeper level of understanding. Would we be able to create these constructs if we were not conscious beings? Would we be able to come up with these constructs or ideas or explanations or concepts, that's what a construct is, without being conscious beings? The answer is obvious, right? You need consciousness to come up with an idea. You need consciousness to come up with a construct or a notion or an understanding. So the only thing that is not a construct is the source of the construct, which is our own consciousness. So what we call the universe, and that, by the way, includes our own body and mind, because our body and mind is also a mode of knowing and experience in our consciousness. Actually, our body and mind is a changing activity in consciousness, known in consciousness and made out of consciousness. So our body and mind are basically modes of knowing and experience in consciousness, just like everything else, just like the color blue or this book. Our body and mind are a process, a mode of knowing and experience in consciousness that then we call a book, or we call a hand, or we call a nose, or this face, or these glasses, etc. They're all modes of knowing and experience. Here's a little simpler way to understand this. Anything that humans have given a name to or described is a construct. Fundamental reality for you and me as humans is color, shape, form, behind me, shape, form, taste, smell, fragrance, taste, smell, sensation, images, thoughts. That's fundamental reality. But then we come up with the name. And as soon as we come up with a name and a description, then we have, almost through alchemy, converted that experience, which is consciousness knowing itself as color, sensation, image, feeling, thought. We have converted that, objectified that, into an observer-independent object called a book, or a star, or a galaxy, or a body. And usually we identify with that body too. We identify with that body. But the body is a changing experience in consciousness, made out of consciousness, known in consciousness, experienced in consciousness. It's a verb, it's a movement in consciousness. So any identity that we give ourselves, any identity which we give ourselves is provisional. Because, that identity once was a baby, an embryo, an atom, a particle, a star, a galaxy. It is this now. All provisional identities, except for pure consciousness or pure awareness, which modifies itself as this experience, and then the interpretation of that experience in consciousness called body, mind, and universe. In fact, all that is consciousness experiencing itself in a particular mode of knowing and experience. That's it. Okay, so now it's very obvious to me what this means. It means that the universe we experience is a human universe. And that includes other life forms that we call species. So everything from a microbe to a dolphin to a bat to a snake to an alligator, as far as humans are concerned, that's a species. But remember, those names were given to animals and other life forms by human beings. A giraffe doesn't know it's called a giraffe. A tree has some rudimentary knowing and experience. It moves towards the light. It nourishes itself from the earth. It responds to injury. So that which we call a tree is actually a sentient being. That which we call an alligator or dolphin, a bat, is a sentient being with its own modes of knowing and experience that are subjectively unavailable to us. We can guess, if a dog is experiencing fear and barking as a result of that, we can guess that, the dog is probably experiencing fear. If another animal is writhing in pain, we can guess it's having the experience of pain. But we maybe don't really have a truer subjective knowing of what that experience is in that particular sentient being, whether it's a dog or an alligator or a dolphin or a bat. That subjective experience is unknowable to us. But I think we can say with confidence that what these sentient beings are experiencing is experience. They have some experience. We can see that from their behavior. Sentient beings have an experience. So I am using the word sentient beings as an equivalent to the statement species of consciousness. So everything from a caterpillar to a butterfly to an insect an insect with multiple eyes, all these species are actually species of knowing and experience in a bigger consciousness, which we call cosmic consciousness. Cosmic consciousness is experiencing itself as the experience of what we call a butterfly. Cosmic consciousness is experiencing itself as what we call a caterpillar. Cosmic consciousness is experiencing itself as what we call a giraffe or an elephant or a dolphin or a bat or a snake. And what those experiences are, we have also created models of that. We say a snake experiences infrared, which is a human construct for a particular mode of knowing called the electromagnetic spectrum. Or we say a bat experiences the echo of ultrasound, which is a human construct. Echo of ultrasound is a human construct for a mode of human knowing and experience. But we kind of objectify that and say, that's the experience of a dolphin, that's the experience of a bat, that's the experience of an insect with multiple eyes. We have no idea what that experience is. We are guessing and making assumptions based on human constructs of modes of knowing and experience. It's as simple as that. So what is cosmic consciousness? Cosmic consciousness is experiencing itself in innumerable modes of knowing. Innumerable. Our mode of knowing is what we call human knowing. But there's an element of knowing in a honeybee that's going to look for what humans call nectar. And its mode of communication is something called the waggle dance. A honeybee goes in search of what humans call nectar, comes back, and when it's back in the hive, it does something called a waggle dance, and every other honeybee knows where to go to find that nectar. But remember, that's a human explanation for a mode of knowing and experience in human consciousness. Now, let's go back to an understanding of deep reality. According to how I can explain deep reality, it is formless, it is timeless, it is borderless, it is therefore infinite. So we could easily substitute the word cosmic consciousness for infinite consciousness. And human consciousness as one aspect of that infinite consciousness. But that infinite consciousness is also the consciousness of other sentient beings. That creates different modes of knowing and experience. Cosmic consciousness is all these modes of knowing and experience in every sentient being in all species of consciousness. I think I've explained this. Why does it matter? Well, it matters because once we know that scientific models work, first of all, let's not confuse the scientific models with the fundamental reality in which those models are created. Dimensionless, infinitely dimension, same thing. Dimensionless or infinite dimensionality, borderless, timeless, spaceless. Cannot be conceived. You cannot conceive nothingness. But without that inconceivable awareness, there are no concepts. Cannot be seen, but without that inconceivable, unseen awareness, there is no seeing. There is no anything. There is no perception. There is no sound. Sound is an experience in consciousness. Taste is an experience in consciousness. Smell is an experience in consciousness. And the constructs are also interpretations in consciousness. Also interpretations in consciousness. There is only consciousness experiencing itself in all these modes. So in every act of perception, close your eyes, open your eyes. In that simple act of perception, closing the eyes and opening the eyes, you as consciousness create the experience of the visible world. Same thing. You put your attention to sound and you experience sound. You take it away, put your attention to your breath, you experience that sensation that we call breath. So there is nothing other than consciousness. Everything else is a mode of knowing and experience in consciousness. For us, we have constructs that are useful so we can create science. But everything is consciousness. Everything is consciousness. There is nothing other than consciousness. Nothing is everything. In every sentient being, it acquires a different experience. Innumerable experiences. Infinite consciousness, dimensionless or infinitely dimension, same thing. Today, if you ask scientists, what is the most fundamental reality that houses the wave function, they'll say it's something called Hilbert space. And if you ask them what is Hilbert space, they'll say it's an infinitely dimensional mathematical space that houses the wave function. But do remember that Hilbert space is a mathematical concept in mathematical imagination which exists in human consciousness. Same thing with the wave function that ultimately manifests as the periodic table. These are human constructs in mathematical imagination. Are they real? Well, they are real as experiences in the same way that your body is real, in the same way that what you call your mind is real, in the same way as that bookshelf behind me is real, in the same way as stars and galaxies and photons and gluons and particles are real, but they are also part of the cosmic dream. Cosmic consciousness is dreaming all forms of knowing and experience in all sentient beings, which are aspects of that cosmic consciousness. the Yoga Vishishta says this universe is a vast, evolving dream in cosmic consciousness. Have I explained this? What is the objection to this? Realism, as physicalists describe it, comes in many forms. There's something called scientific realism, something called representational realism, something called naive realism, but all these are also modes of human experience. Atheists, theists, panpsychists, non-dualists, dualists, all these are states of mind. And these states of mind, of human mind, are modes of conditioning of human consciousness. But human consciousness is only one species of consciousness. So we are part of the matrix. And the matrix, nice word, matrix, mother, matter, meter, time, measurement, music. These are modes of knowing and experience. Theology, philosophy, religion, systems of thought in consciousness. Science, a system of thought in consciousness. So, what is the difference between scientists, true scientists? What is the difference between a true scientist and an apostle of scientism? I think of my friends Michael Shermer and Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris to a lesser extent, and Brian Cox as apostles of scientism. Scientism is a human construct that basically is part of our vocabulary now. It refers to people who think that science is the only explanation for the universe. Science is the only explanation of what we call reality. And so science has all the answers to why we love music or why we fall in love, and all these explanations are given some kind of evolutionary basis for why we fall in love, or why we wonder, or why we yearn to know the truth. That's what I'm referring to as scientism. A belief, actually, that science is the only answer to everything. But theologians will say religion is the only answer. Philosophers will say, actually, philosophers are closer because they use terms like ontology, which is the nature of being, and epistemology, which is the nature of understanding or knowing and the limits of human understanding. But remember, those are all still part of thought. Unless you know what is the source of thought, you're not getting to the real understanding of understanding. What is it that understands understanding? What is it that says I'm an atheist? What is it that says I am a theist or a philosopher? What is it that says I want to know? What is it that creates constructs? Go deep within, and I think you will end up in the same place. And that place is infinite consciousness, cosmic consciousness. Many people will ask, is cosmic consciousness also a construct? And I would say Cosmic consciousness is the source of all constructs. So thank you for being so patient with me, because I often repeat myself in order to make a point. And so before we end, I'm going to repeat myself once more. Cosmic consciousness is the immeasurable potential for all modes of knowing and experience in all sentient beings. In human beings, it also acquires interpretations, constructs, and models. But no model is a substitute for reality. There is only consciousness. Till next time.